Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the next in our video shorts, which is a series of interviews that I'm doing with local Devon writers. And today I'm delighted to introduce those of you that don't know her to Jill Treseder, who's somewhere down in the Dart Valley. Welcome, Jill.
Hello. Hello, everybody. It's really nice to be here. And yes, I'm overlooking the River Dart, which is very lucky. I can look across the water when I'm writing.
Well, that's a lovely place to be doing your writing anyway. And we're here today to talk about your fourth novel, My Sister, Myself, which I believe is set in Hungary. So I was going to ask you to tell us a little bit about the book.
Yes, well, people kept asking me how I came to be writing a novel about two Hungarian sisters. And it all started when I visited the town where I used to go to school. And I saw the old school building, and it reminded me of this Hungarian refugee who landed in our midst when I was 12 or 13. And my memory of her was that she had an absolutely filthy temper, was always lashing out, and that we were horrible to her. And as an adult, I sort of took a step back and thought about that and thought, supposing she was different and we were horrible to her, and then she lashed out. It could have been that way round. And we weren't told anything about her, where she'd come from, why she was there, anything about her family, what she might have been through. And I think that would have been handled really differently today. But it set me thinking, and I wanted to explore those questions. I think I was curious, but also there was a bit of me, I think, that wanted to make amends, do a bit of healing of the past, if you like. So I started exploring this person, but she turned out to have a name the equivalent of Mary Smith. So my explorations quickly turned into fiction. She became a character and acquired a sister and a family and aunts and uncles. And before I knew it, I was writing a novel. And once I acknowledged that I was actually doing that, Hungarians started appearing in my life, as happens with that sort of serendipity when you commit to something. And the first one turned out to be a friend of my daughter-in-law, and she invited him to lunch. And I got my first introduction to Hungarian history and politics. He'd come out of Hungary at the time of the 1956 uprising, and I was completely bemused by what he told me about the politics. It was so complex. And of course, it's not just about Hungary, it's about Germany, Austria, Russia. And so I knew that if I was writing a novel, that whole bit had to be a backdrop and not center stage, because I was so aware of how wrong I could get it. And so it is a novel about the relationship between these two sisters, which is very much in line with themes of novels before. It's about relationship. And of these two girls, the elder wants more than anything in the world to be a ballet dancer. The younger one wants more than anything in the world for her sister to love her. And they're both doomed to be frustrated in these ambitions. So the novel opens when they're children in Hungary, and then we move towards the 1956 uprising, in which their father was very prominent as a dissident writer. And the uprising is crushed by Russian tanks very brutally. The girls escape with their parents via Vienna to London. And when they're in England, they get sent away to boarding school, which is my opportunity to have a go at my old school. Doesn't come out terribly well, I have to say, but I quite enjoyed doing that. They extricate themselves from the school, but then tragedy strikes, because their father is a wanted man, and he may be in London, but the long arm of the KGB, as it was then, and by another name is still a long arm today, as we are very well aware. That gets him, and not to bring in too many spoilers, their lives fall apart, and they end up going to live with their rather eccentric aunt, who very conveniently lives in Devon. So I was on home territory there. And we follow their lives as they grow up, and family secrets emerge, which are very difficult to deal with. And eventually there is a coming together. But it's a very long and involved process. So that gives you an idea of what it's about.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I mean, it's interesting as you're talking, really, because I mean, it's 1956, and here we are almost in a rerun of the Cold War at the moment, aren't we? So it's there's a sort of timeliness about the book. I don't know how much conscious you were of that as you were writing it.
Well, I became more conscious of it. Yes, I mean, it wasn't something I intended at the beginning, but yeah, I did.
No, it's interesting, and it does. I mean, it's a complex story that you just described, and it sounds like, and it's a bit like, I think, with some of your earlier work. I mean, you do write in a very layered way, don't you? I mean, you're not just telling the story of two girls and their relationship. I mean, that's against quite a complex and multi-layered backdrop.
Yeah, the themes, interestingly enough, I wasn't aware when I was doing it, but when I look back, I see themes of family secrets keep popping up in novel after novel, and issues of identity. You know, who am I, and who am I with regard to my sister? All those things are very much themes that are there, and of course the business of being a refugee, which is also very topical at the moment.
And these are themes that clearly interest you, aren't they? I mean, I haven't had the chance to read this book yet. I mean, it's so recently out, I haven't caught up with it yet. But I did read Place of Safety, which is one of your earlier books. And again, I mean, there's some threads in here that I'm sort of picking up about the way human relationships work, and loss and love, and some of those very complex issues that obviously interest you and seem a bit of a theme running through your work. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. It is, yes. And I suppose with my first novel, it started off by a family secret in my own family. That's what triggered it. And I suppose, I don't know whether that's why I have such a fascination with secrets. But again, in Place of Safety, there is a secret going on. You know, she doesn't know who her father is, you know, and therefore you've got an issue of identity again. So, yeah, it is a recurrent theme.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, and I know both of us share a bit of a past, a history, and working history in social work, don't we? So, I mean, I guess some of your professional backgrounds connected you with a lot of those human dynamics, and that's coming through in your work.
Yes, and in this one, I use that as well, because one of the sisters becomes involved in social work, which was quite a surprise to me, because I had no intention that she should do, but characters go their own way, and there she was, and so I quite enjoyed that bit too.
It is interesting. I mean, we won't talk for long because these are short videos, but it's interesting hearing you talk about characters going their own way. So it sounds as though in your way of writing, you're not plotting this to the nth degree beforehand. You've got a framework, and then you're allowing it to develop as you go. Is that fair?
I'm definitely not a plotter ahead. Sense of how it's going to end, but how it's about how the relationship's going to end. And my lack of plotting gets me into trouble, because it gives me a lot more work, because I find that I've got, you know, what's the word, continuity issues. I find I've got daffodils in September, and you know that they're the wrong age in the wrong year, and of course when you've got a historical background, you've got to get those things right. But I find I'm going back over and having to rejig things constantly. I wish I could be a little bit more of a planner.
Oh, I don't know. Do you know, I quite like the idea of daffodils in September. I think, and the way climate change is going, you never know, do you? We might find that happening yet. But if you're an innovator and a creator, what's wrong with having a daffodil in September? That seems all right to me. Anyway, so just finally, I mean, a few words then about the rest of your work, because we've mentioned Place of Safety. But I'm
Yeah.
with my sister, myself. That's your fourth novel. So there are two others, and a couple of other works as well that you've done. Do you just want to give those a brief mention?
Yes, yes. The first one was The Hatmaker's Secret, which is based on my own family history, but it has two threads, one in the early 20th century and one in the 21st century, and the families interweave, and the secret has impact over three generations of women. And then there's Place of Safety, which we've mentioned, which is set on Dartmoor, and begins with a guy who's just helped his wife to die, which sounds rather gloomy, but I think you can probably say that it's not a gloomy book,
No.
you having read
Yeah,
it.
no, it's not.
And then Becoming Fram, which is a coming of age book, which again involves the family secret and issues of identity. And then the novella, which links to The Hatmaker's Secret. And if you can see the cover there.
If you lift it a little bit more. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's better. Yeah, great. Yeah.
yeah, the Saturday Letters. And that's about the hatmaker's grandmother who started life in the West Indies and brought up a family in Gibraltar, and then poor woman came to Sheerness, which must have been a terrible shock to the system climate-wise. I really enjoyed doing that. And then they're all very different in their sort of location and backdrop, but as I say, the themes
consistent there.
constantly.
Yeah. What I've realised we haven't done, have you got a copy of My Sister, Myself there with you? Because we haven't put that in on the screen. We ought to do that towards the end. Yeah, a little bit higher. That's great, lovely. Well, wonderful photograph. Yeah, who designed the cover?
That was Silverwood Books, their design team.
Yeah.
They found and a friend of mine had the idea of having the rip down the middle, because you know that is a estrangement between the sisters. And I love it. I love their feet.
Yes.
and the clothes, you get a sense of the 50s.
Of the 50s,
I think.
Yeah. Lovely. Lovely. Okay. So the book was published on the 31st of July. Available where? How can people get hold of it?
Amazon, from Silverwood Books. They have it on their website. It's available as an ebook in various formats and a paperback. So yeah, it's fairly easy, and you can order it from bookshops and
wonderful.
Available in libraries too.
Okay, lovely. Well, congratulations on the publication of it, and I imagine you've started the next one now, have you? Or you having a rest?
Yes, I'm well into it. The next one's going to be a novella.
Is
and
it?
I'm well into it. Yes, yes. It's based on back in the 50s actually. And based on a tragedy that took place in this local area. But I won't say more than that at this stage.
No giveaways at this point. Well, look, keep us in touch with how that develops. Good luck with this. Good luck with this book. I hope it does well, and enjoy the rest of your day down there overlooking the River Dart.
Well, thank you very much, Ian. Thank you for having me on the show.
Pleasure. Nice to talk to you, Jill. Bye for now.